I'm 16 hours back from vacation, so.
Very good.
Really? Still a lot of this still inside.
Excellent, excellent.
By tomorrow, it could be a different story.
I'm glad we got you today. Testing.
And then until you have to deal with the 300 knocking in that street, then it all went.
Okay, good afternoon, folks. We're ready to get started with the Traffic Commission meeting for Tuesday, July 12th. Welcome, and thank you for being here. We have, Rhonda? Okay, very good. The first item of business is the minutes of the previous meeting, the May of 22 meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. So the minutes for the May meeting have been approved. In terms of old business, just touching base on some of the old business, 2322, considering the review by Cindy, the city engineer, based on a request to convert East Fulton Street to a one-way and add sidewalks between North Lime and North Shippen Street.
Yes, I wanted to add this back onto the agenda. I know the action from the last meeting was that staff would work, administratively to try and find a solution. The one thing that was recommended, which was not acted on at the last meeting, was to remove one parking space on Lime Street, just south of Fulton Street. So that's what I would be proposing today, is that we would remove the one parking space to improve sightlines for traffic exiting Fulton Street onto Lime Street.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this item?
Make a motion to approve 2022 with the removal of one parking space on North Lime Street.
It's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second, and I
Is there
also,
further discussion?
yes, further discussion, please. Just one question. Were we able to look at this section as it relates to the eastbound connector at all?
Yeah, we did just submit a grant request for looking at the second phase of the eastbound connector, and we are looking at whether that could be added into the, that could be part of the evaluation of the scope of that project. So, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Is there any discussion from the public on this item? So there's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. So that will be the case for that stretch of Fulton Street to one-way.
No,
I'm sorry,
no, we're just removing a parking
Just-
space on Lime Street.
my apologies. Just removing the one parking space for greater visibility. Okay. Now, often we skip the consent agenda to get directly into the action agenda. Are we okay doing that this time as well? Okay, so let's jump ahead to the action agenda. Item 28-2022, considering the request of Cecilia Parker to change East Mifflin Street to one-way between Ann and Marshall, traveling westbound. Ms. Parker? Would you please, when you come to the podium, just let us know your name and the block that you live in? Is there a button there that you can press for it to turn red so that we can hear you?
My name is Cecilia Parker.
It's a little bit better. Can you pull the,
My name is Cecilia Parker. I live at 27 South Ann Street.
very good. Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Parker.
Thank you. Yeah, just read by. I'm requesting that East Mifflin Street between South Ann Street.
I'm sorry. It really is difficult to hear. You may need to speak directly into the microphone.
I'm requesting that East Mifflin Street between South Ann Street and South Marshall Street be changed from two-way to one-way street. having all traffic traveling west from South Marshall Street to South Ann Street. I have lived on South Ann Street since 1965, and I've seen the volume of traffic around South Ann Street, East Mifflin Street, and South Marshall Street increase greatly. My reason for this change: this block of East Mifflin Street has increased with cars, trucks, tractor-trailer trucks, and other commercial vehicles coming and going in either direction. The trucks and tractor-trailer trucks and other commercial vehicles are going to KL Plating Company located in this block of East Mifflin Street. The KL Plating Company has increased in business over the years, thus adding to the traffic increase. Reason 2, the width of East Mifflin Street does not accommodate two vehicles of any size to safely pass at the same time. One driver must yield by backing out to South Ann Street or South Marshall Street. At times, the drivers yield by pulling his vehicle alongside a garage, thus hampering the garage owner's access to his or her garage. My third reason, in spite of some post signs indicating no parking in front of garages and no parking in this block, drivers ignore signs, adding to traffic tie-ups. My fourth reason, there are no sidewalks in this block of East Mifflin Street, allowing for safe walking. My fifth reason, at least 4 times, tractor-trailer trucks and other large vehicles have damaged the top front porch at 27 South Ann Street while turning from South Ann Street onto Mifflin Street. This home sits on the corner of South Ann Street and East Mifflin Street. These large trucks are going to KL Plating Company located in East Mifflin Street. It would be easier for the large trucks use South Marshall Street to enter East Mifflin Street and exit by South Ann Street. Having all vehicles traveling the same direction, the traffic flow would be smoother, easier, safer, and less congestion.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay, thank you. Cindy, have we taken a look at this street, at this request?
We haven't done a detailed review of it yet. I have spoke with Ms. Parker on a couple occasions because she has expressed in the past and just recently again in the past about her home being hit. Ann Street is one way west of, or no, I'm sorry, Mifflin Street is one way west of Ann Street, but it is two-way for the remainder of Mifflin as it travels east past Franklin Street. So I think we just need to do a more detailed analysis, looking at what, those travel patterns changes could impact. I will say that obviously Mifflin Street is a small street and having heavy vehicles on it does pose some challenges. In the past, I've not necessarily liked converting even these smaller streets to one way just because of the changes in travel patterns and that kind of thing, but we can definitely look at it in more detail.
Are there other things on the commission that you'd want to make sure are considered as we do that study? Are there any other comments from the public on this item?
I just have some potential concerns about those sight lines once we exit Mifflin out on Ann Street. That could be, that definitively where the cars are now, it would be an issue. Not to say it's not an issue that we couldn't overcome, but I think the trade-off would have to be, we'd have to lose a parking space or two in an already parking challenge block. It's just something to consider.
So as I understand it, this will be an administrative follow-up. We're not looking for a motion. We're just going to continue to do the assessment and be able to report back at the next meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, if that's what the commission wants to do.
Is that the sense of the commission?
I would make a motion to table 28, 2022 with studies being conducted for that block of East Mifflin Street.
Okay.
Second.
So a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. We'll be looking at it, and we'll be getting back to this commission at a future meeting. Thank you very much for your request. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 29-2022, considering the request from the Lancaster Marriott at Penn Square to renew the designated parking spaces on East King Street for hotel use. Mr. Noack?
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, these are the 5 designated spots on East King Street between the end of our driveway and Christian Street, and this has been under agreement with the Parking Authority for the last 2 years, so we're certainly asking for renewal of that. It's that area right there which is really imperative for helping us safely and seamlessly accommodate arriving guests and convention attendees. As you know, our driveway is a little bit stressed with the additional guest rooms in the East Tower. So this allows us to accommodate arriving guests a little bit better, and it also eliminates any kind of queuing that you would see on Queen Street as people are going up there and turning right into our driveway. So as I said, we had gotten this just before, obviously, COVID. Now we're starting to see some rebound and recovery in our hotel business as well as our meeting, conference, and convention. So it is very valuable to us.
As hotel designated parking spaces, would it be for both regular vehicles and for buses? Would there be a separate designation?
Yeah, we very rarely use it for buses. We have additional parking for buses. So this is primarily intended for loading and unloading hotel guests and any kind of oversized vehicle that wouldn't fit in the Penn Square garage. So it's not really intended to serve as overnight parking for guests. It's really there for, again, loading and unloading.
Okay. Are there any other things you'd like to share with us, or anyone else who'd like to speak on this item?
Well, we do have a representative from the Parking Authority who would, if you'd like any additional feedback from him, I'm sure he'd be happy to do so.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Dave Diffendahl with the Lancaster Parking Authority, 30 West Orange Street. So those 5 spaces have been in use for the last 2 years. When it was approved 2 years ago, the requirement of the Traffic Commission was that it be renewed in 2 years. So we are back requesting that, or Josh Nowak on behalf of the Marriott is requesting that renewal to take place. So the Parking Authority is in support of it for safety and accessibility for visitors, tourists, and citizens as well, partaking of the Marriott as well as the Convention Center.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have we looked at it at a staff level? Is there any commentary at the staff level?
We haven't reviewed it since the last time. I guess remind me again, this is a 24-hour, 7-day week. It's signed as a loading zone, or what is it?
Yes, and it's designated as loading for hotel. Yeah, see the sign there.
And is there, I guess I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity to open that up for parking during certain times of day or that kind of thing?
It's a little difficult because it's just the timing of arriving guests. So it's hard to say that any other one time would be more accessible for daily parking. What we did previously was we basically had rented, we hooded the meters on at certain times, but as we added the additional tower, that additional space was really critical to us.
Are there other comments or questions from the commission?
I can tell you from our standpoint, that load zone is absolutely critical and beneficial for us, especially from the larger event standpoints for vehicular movement and traffic. So I've seen it as beneficial, and nor have I've never seen it abused either.
Any other comments? Is there a need, does the commission feel that there's a need for further study, or is it something as straightforward as renewal as per the original request?
I'm fine to renew for 2 years. I'll motion to renew.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any comment at the commission level about either reservation or about doing that or not? Are there any comments from the public regarding this? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Adriana Atencio, 700 block of Fifth Street. I would be totally fine seeing these renewed. The only thing is, the hotel and the convention center does not provide any bicycle parking whatsoever. And there are citizens in Lancaster who attend these restaurants and who, use the hotel as well, who go to the conventions. And I think it would be really great if they are going to have 5 parking spaces to also provide some bicycle parking as well for people. So we're not forced to use those poles and stuff. Just putting that out there. It might be a nice thing to have as well.
So we're not making that a requirement, but Mr. Nowak, would you like to respond?
No, I appreciate that comment. We just actually, we're talking about that just this week in staff meeting to add some bike parking or some racks there, not only for guests, but for our own associates who are now riding to work these days. So point well taken, and we actually have plans in place for it.
Yay. Any other comments from the public? If with no other comments, shall we take the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Congratulations. The next item is item 30-2020, considering the request from the residents on the 600 block of South Marshall Street to install no commercial vehicle parking restrictions. The original applicant makes this request anonymously due to safety concerns. Pictures of the large vehicles have been provided.
So I was not able to, she sent those pictures to my work cell phone. I don't have email set up on my work cell phone. I do have pictures on my personal cell phone because I tried to email them to myself and it didn't work.
So how close to what we're seeing on the screen is what her photos are actually trying to show? I'm sure the photos are trying to show specific circumstances.
It is, so there are tow trucks and even a car carrier that have been parked on this street and sitting there for different periods of time. She said that there were times that they would be as close to a driveway as possibly can be without blocking, causing site problems with the owners or the property, the people that live on the property to come out of their driveway. There's been landscapers that go there and are not able to access the different parts of the property that they need to get onto. A tree trimmer had to actually back up into somebody's yard to do their job. So
Is it one or just a few particular businesses that use have their trucks here, or is it a variety?
and I could go out there and try to set it up here, but this is the tow truck, that's the car carrier, and that's all of them together parking there. So they're not just at single occasions, they're multiple occasions.
So for the benefit of those who can't see this, it's showing car carrier trucks, which are very, very long trucks, taking up several spaces on several different instances, several different days,
3 different trucks there.
blocking driveways, etc. So first, any initial comments about what we're seeing?
I can tell you that I did go down and I did speak with the complainant, and I did see the concerns that she had, and they absolutely are legitimate concerns. The businesses / owners that these vehicles come back to do not live in the block. They live a few blocks away, and they are essentially parking in that block because nothing says they can't park in the block. These are extraordinarily large vehicles, so when Ms. Morales talks about a tow truck, we're talking commercial vehicle tow trucks in excess of 26,000 pounds, and in addition to the car carrier trailer, so I get it. When I was there, the complainant had a lawn care company that ended up having to block her neighbor's driveway so they could access her property because of the commercial vehicles that were parked there. And more minimally, they're not pleasant to look at, especially when you look out your front window and this is all you see, and they do not move for an extended period of time. I get where she's coming from.
Do we have regulations or guidance regarding commercial vehicles on streets?
As long as it's not posted and being restricted, they can. We do have several areas in the city that will allow, based on space, for those commercial vehicles to remain. However, that runs into the whole abandoned vehicle, and they have to be moved every 48 hours, things of that nature.
I mean, it's,
So we do have signage that prohibits, and it is in the regulation that prohibits commercial vehicles
Yes, ma'am.
over 9,500 pounds. So, yeah, the Traffic Commission has authority to post streets for no commercial vehicle parking. So
Correct.
it has limitations on how long they can be there
And then
and
hours,
during hour, yes.
correct. Hours and/or days, correct.
it also strikes me as we are trying to look at the larger question of parking and parking needs throughout the city, that these often are taking away parking spaces. Even though this looks like it's a wide open street, it's taking away parking spaces when we don't have sufficient parking spaces for the residential population that's here as well. Are there any other comments and/or recommendations?
I have a question. Could you give me a sense of what size vehicle? I think you said 9,500 pounds or more. I assume like small residential sedans and trucks would be fine under that, and then over that would be what, like a box truck of some kind?
I can tell you that our Ford F-350 and mounted trailer would fall under
Wow.
the 26,000 pound limit.
Okay.
So while ours are longer, the weight is the issue. So not only are these vehicles long, but they're heavy.
I think that makes sense.
Any recommendations for this situation? Do you
Yeah,
want
I
to?
make a motion to approve posting of the no commercial vehicle parking restriction on the 600 block of South Marshall.
I would second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further comments at the commission level? Any further comments from the public? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. The next item on the action agenda is item 31-2022. Consider the petition from the residents on the 100 block of South Marshall Street to remove residential permit parking. Ms. Reyes has attempted to obtain the 75% as required. The petition was returned to fulfill the requirements for both day and night. Some signatures missing. Is Ms. Reyes present? So in many ways, it strikes me, if I remember correctly, this block is also next to Park Garden Court, which is one of the areas that has caused all of us to take another look at the residential parking permitting. We had basically, while continuing to study the situation, we had basically decided we were not imposing new RPP restrictions. Does that mean we would not entertain an opportunity to take away such parking restriction? Comments?
I don't see a reason not to take it away if they've met all the requirements.
So Rhonda, what's noted here is that a couple of these requirements are not quite met.
Right, Sergeant Gerace was just asking me the same thing. Some of the signatures were obtained on one and not the other, so I tried to explain to her that she needs to get these other signatures. So I was just looking over it with him, which one's that, so the very first one, 111 South Marshall Street for nighttime. If you could see 113 signed in both spaces, so I marked that out, and they only signed it on the day when I returned the form. And then the same thing on the back page for the day and night. They have one for 141 and one for 139 that did not sign both sheets.
Are those the only non-compliant aspects of the application?
That's correct, yeah. It's just a matter that they didn't sign both sheets. For day and night, they were only signing one.
Right, so ordinarily, we would want to make sure that all the requirements are met so that we don't have an opportunity to be challenged at some point in the future. This sounds like it's an opportunity where, unless I'm hearing differently, the commission is generally positively disposed to this, but we really want the i's dotted and the t's crossed.
It looks like there's only one signature missing for nighttime. Otherwise, there's 11 signatures for night and 12 for day.
And in terms of 75%,
12 signatures are needed. So we're short one signature
So
for night.
I'll take a recommendation from the council, from the commission.
Under that situation, I would deny that and then have them reissue it again if they want to continue it. That would be the only way that would work, that they have to redo it.
Is that a motion?
Motion
I'll
to
make a
deny.
motion to deny.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further comments? Any comments from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Please ask that they resubmit with full signatures in the right places.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sent it.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, the next item is item 32-2022, reviewing the land development plans for 202 North Queen Street, submitted by Cheryl Love of ELA Group. Ms. Love?
Right, good afternoon. With me on this project is Matt Johnson with Berger Rental Communities. He's going to give a brief overview while I pass out a few more materials for you.
Very good.
And Ms. Love, do you mind if we use the projector again, just to share the materials with the room? We can use the document projector on the table there, okay. Oh, Rhonda, are you able to pull up the
Well, she can point to them.
document, or would you prefer to use the document camera here?
She just pulled the camera. That way she can point to them. So.
Yeah,
Yes.
that'll be easier for everyone. That way, everyone will see exactly the same things that are being pointed to.
Is this the North Queen one? North Queen?
Okay.
Yeah, I
Thank
have
you.
that out there, not on
Appreciate
here yet. I transferred.
Very
it out.
good, thank you.
I need to know what it is.
Thanks.
Cheryl, which one is it that you wanted me to pull up? There's demo and layout. Okay. Okay.
So as Cheryl said, my name's Matt Johnson. I'm with Berger Rental Communities. We're the owner developer of this parcel. The plans are to build a 12-story apartment building here. So that's 142 units. And on the ground floor, we'll have about 2,800 square feet of retail on Chestnut Street, which is planned south, if you're looking at the image on the screen. The entrances to the retail spaces are all along Chestnut Street. There's 3 entrances, and then the main entrance to our apartment building is on Queen Street, about halfway where Cheryl's pointing on the screen. So
Can Rhonda focus?
Cheryl will review our request.
Are you able to focus this a little bit better?
On here?
Right, from this, I don't know if there's an adjustment that allows a little bit more focus?
Since they put this system in, I don't know.
Okay,
We'll go with it.
hold on for just a second.
Yeah.
Is that what you're?
Yeah, just to sort of zoom in around.
Zoom in a little bit further. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
That's pretty good.
Can you go a little, does it go a little bit further out? Yep,
Yeah,
there,
that's as good as it gets.
that's about it.
Great.
Thank you very much, though.
We won't flip the plan over, but the lot configuration from existing, this square area is all parking lot. You guys are aware of the location. And then the parking also extends up the narrower portion that used to be part of the old historic rail that had come from the station there where the Transit Authority garage is now. So as Matt described, our commercial spaces are all fronting on Chestnut Street. There are two of them. There's a larger one at the corner at the intersection, and that's approximately 1,750 square feet with two doors. The one immediately planned left on that is another smaller commercial space, approximately 980 square feet. And then to the left of that are a trash room that's intended for those commercial facilities. Some mechanical spaces are up the left side of the plan. And then going to the upper right-hand corner on that northeast corner of the building, that room is geared specifically to residential trash for all of the units to bring their trash. The trash will come downstairs, and there's there'll be a garage door that opens on the right-hand side of that building, and that's where the residential trash will roll out. That's important to note because we're looking for two separate loading zones for this project, and we wanted to discuss that with you today. The one near the end of the engineering scale there is important for the access to and from that residential trash room, and that will also serve as a package delivery, food delivery, all those modern conveniences in the last couple of years that have really taken off for the primary residential lobby doors, which are just south of that there on the midpoint of Queen Street. So that's going to be a highly used space in that location. I would note our existing plan just south of that zone I described to you in yellow, there's a depressed curb for 44 feet that exists that we will be closing off. We are, with this project, replacing all curbing along Chestnut and Queen for the entire frontage. We've looked at the reveals and worked with Kevin from your sidewalk department. So we are providing all new curbing, new brick banding, structural soils for the street trees every 25 feet, whatever, throughout there to really improve, as well as new concrete sidewalks, meeting the city's codes for walkability there. So the loading zone to the lower left, we were searching for that to be accessed as it relates to deliveries for the commercial spaces, so we can get traffic off the street. We know that's a highly used area. We do know directly south of where the word street is there by Chestnut, there's the very intensive used bus transit shelter there. So we know it's a very active zone. We do not want any of our deliveries to exacerbate any of the traffic flow through there. So we're looking for your thoughts and hopefully approval today on that. So really to close the existing driveway opening and then to seek these two separate zones is really what our application in front of you today is for.
Thank you very much, Ms. Love. At this moment, how far to the east does, on the Chestnut Street one, how far to the east does parking currently exist? And
It-
on
it-
this, same on Prince Street, on South Queen Street?
There
North
is
Queen.
parking, I believe, in that zone that we're showing as, we would like to seek it as loading. There is parking there now. I believe it occurs along that I believe up close towards the stop bar. I think you can park pretty close up to that corner.
That's correct.
Queens, is that correct?
That's correct. You can essentially park from House of Pizza, continuing
go.
east,
Mhm.
all the way up to Queen Street,
Right,
on the north side of the street.
correct. Rhonda, if you can drive me around the corner.
There you go.
Drive you around.
Yeah.
On Queen,
On
North
Queen.
Queen.
If you look left, the parking really does not start on this street for the majority of it until right up near north of our parking, our property line. There's a fire hydrant that's in the back, that area there. So where we're looking is about in front of that light post, forward up to parking line next to the next building's property line for the load zone. So kind of behind where the two people are standing there behind the van would be where it would end from that point back. Again, we understand Queen Street is very active, and we've got Queen Street Station just up the street to the right, as well as the parking garage directly across the street from us is a highly used traffic area. So we are trying to be cognitive to not, to provide spaces with the 142 residents that we're bringing to this site, but still find a safe way to manage all of their needs for the building.
And can you just repeat again, how many spaces are you providing for the, how many units in the building?
142, am I correct? Oh, Park, go ahead.
We have 142 apartments, and we have, right now, I think it's just a letter of intent with the garage across the street to provide parking spaces. So Berger will have a long-term lease on, I think it's 100 parking spaces across the street, but I think we have the opportunity to raise or decrease it kind of as needed. So our intent is that all of our residents are parking in the garage across Queen Street.
Okay. Are there other questions or any other comments or things you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really what we're looking for. Again, ignore how the blue trash recyclables are in that photo because ours would be inside the building. And that's why we feel this zone is important to allow those to roll out and go back in and be visually out of sight for this project, so.
Okay, thank you. Are there comments or questions from the commission?
I have a couple questions. So, can you just confirm the loading zone uses in either location? I know you said one is for trash delivery or trash pickup and the other is for commercial, but I'm just wondering about deliveries for residents or ride share. How do you want these spaces labeled, and do you anticipate multiple uses?
So on Queen Street, it's definitely for trash, as it's right outside the trash room. It would also be for resident loading or resident move-ins. They would load off the truck and then actually go through the alley to the left, which gives them access to our service elevator. And then I imagine it would be for deliveries like UPS, Amazon, to the residents also. And then are you saying it's a different designation for like Uber or?
I don't think so. I was just curious. It says, I think specifically, trash loading zone. So I was just curious what uses you were anticipating there. If it was not going to be used for deliveries or ride share, then I would be wondering where you would be providing those spaces. So it sounds like you're okay with a multi-use commercial loading zone.
Yes.
Okay.
And then on Chestnut, that's primarily for the retail. So it's retail loading for the spaces along Chestnut, and then also retail trash. Our retail trash room is next to the retail along Chestnut. So.
Got it. Thank you. I'm also just curious, and forgive me if I missed this, how many on-street parking spaces are being lost through the design, if any? I know you're closing a driveway and perhaps gaining some.
So I would think to provide the Chestnut Street loading, if it's 35 feet long, that's probably 2 parking spaces, right? But then we're probably net positive because we're adding more on Queen Street where we're closing the 44-foot driveway. So like, currently along our property line, and Cheryl, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any parking on Queen Street, the length of our property line, so.
Yeah, would we actually be able to add any on Queen with the loading zone? Where does the fire hydrant fall related to that as well? Okay.
Like right at the very end of our sidewalk.
Okay, right.
So currently the driveway opening is
Oh,
Push it.
I'm sorry. I was,
So, yeah, it appears like it would be two or three spaces maybe could be added there.
Yeah, I think we could. Yeah, we have, there's dimensions on here, so from the fire hydrant and that tree opening, where the fire hydrant is down, we have 60, 65,
Right.
about 77 feet from the fire hydrant down to the vacant lots. So
Right.
these we get,
Thank you. And I'm curious about the parking lease across the street. I know, we've been chatting about this development for quite some time. You've mentioned ongoing that there's a potential lease. Just curious why that lease hasn't been executed, whether you truly anticipate providing 100 spaces across the street and kind of what the status is.
Yes, we fully anticipate providing the spaces across the street. It's really just going back and forth between the lawyers. Like we're very, very close.
Okay.
But not providing parking would be a tremendous like hindrance to our project. It would be very difficult to lease 140 units without being able to guarantee a parking space somewhere, so.
Understood. And that question is with recognition that there's no required parking in the downtown for this particular project, but just curious. All right, thank you.
I guess I would wonder if we could put some time restrictions on the loading zone on Chestnut Street. I think the one on Queen would make sense to keep that a loading zone at all times if you're doing Uber and deliveries and that kind of thing. But if the one on Chestnut is only doing commercial deliveries, could we limit that so that it could be used for parking during off?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. How do you typically limit commercial loading? Is that 9 to 5
So
essentially, or
you
maybe
would
earlier?
basically request, I don't think we have a set time, so I think you basically request the time that you feel is appropriate, and then the other times it could be used for parking. I'm not sure how that works with the parking authority. I guess it's still just the same pay parking. Is
Yep.
the loading zones?
Okay. We would be okay with that.
is that something that, we could have as part of lease?
Yeah, I think we could stipulate that. Yeah. I'm okay with that if the rest of the commission.
I'd be fine with that. Any other questions or comments from the commission?
I'll just add that I'm glad to see that there's more commercial on the ground floor. And I think initially when we reviewed this project, there was a driveway into the site, and that would have further eliminated parking along the Chestnut Street side. So with the elimination of that driveway, we've now freed up parking and made availability for the commercial loading zones to now fit into the site design. So just want to say that, I appreciate that. And I'll make a motion to approve the request for 32-2022, conditional on land development approval.
And with the stipulation about the,
Yes, please. And with the stipulation that the loading zone on Chestnut Street be allowed for additional or residential parking after commercial hours.
there's been a motion?
Seconded.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there further discussion at the commission level? Are there any further comments from the public? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're not going to be going too far. The next item is item 33-2022. Please review the land development plans for 800 South Queen Street submitted by Cheryl Love of ELA Group.
I'd like to introduce Jeremy Feekins with our project from OzFund, and he wants to speak just real briefly about the project. I don't think it's been in front of you yet. We've worked with staff for a while. We're in the middle of land development reviews, so. Jeremy?
Well, good afternoon. My name is Jeremy Feekins. I'm the owner of 800 South Queen Street. I've owned that property since about 2005. I just wanted to just give a brief overview of the project, since this is the first time the Commission's probably hearing about this. This is an affordable housing project, which fits nicely into that particular neighborhood. We've worked with city staff, which we've been very happy to do and received a lot of support and encouragement from them. This is going to be 52 affordable apartments. I'm going to let Ms. Love talk a little bit about the technical side of the project and how many parking spaces we've got and that sort of thing. But one of the things that we are doing is also including a 6,800 square foot grocery and convenience store with products and fresh food and healthy takeaways at a price point that our neighborhood will be able to afford. This is a very important part of our social structure right now for Lancaster City. Building more affordable apartments. There's been a lot of gentrification, a lot of beautiful apartments and things that have been built. But I was very keen and adamant that we should build affordable apartments. I come from a background where I lived in those kind of properties when I was a kid growing up, and I have a real passion for this. So in 2019, I formed a fund called the Opportunity Zone Fund. It's a $50 million fund. We are building affordable apartments throughout central Pennsylvania in opportunity zones. This project is our first, so it's very important that we do this properly, do it right, so that it can be an example of what can be done with affordable apartments. It's not all about people complaining about affordable living accommodation, because they can be nice and they can be designed well. So we've got a really good team around us to be able to get this done. And I look forward to chatting a little bit more about this if you'd like to ask some further questions. But in the meantime, I'll turn it over to Ms. Love to talk about the technical side of the project.
Yes, so the plan on the screen is the existing site. It's actually our demolition plan. And I believe it's the first one in the packet I handed to you all. All of the yellow areas shaded on this plan are actually existing street openings right now. So it's the old Redmond site. Building is still in the back. All the shaded gray area is currently by-tomb parking. So the whole site is essentially impervious. But what this project will do is we're seeking to close and remove all of those existing openings that you see on the current site. There's an extensive amount. They are outlined in the letter, but along Queen Street, it totals 170 some feet, and 212 feet along Furnace are all open. It's kind of a free-for-all in the way people, they cut through, they drive through. It's a little chaotic out there. And I would also note, so Queen Street being 2 lanes traveling south or northbound, so upper left to lower right on that screen, is not real defined as far as traffic lanes, and it's something that we had spoken to Cindy and Douglas and the staff earlier on in our design phases, as well as we've worked to continue communicating with the neighborhood and help them understand how this project is moving forward. So I'm going to flip the plan a second. So with our proposed conditions, we are seeking 1 driveway access down off of Queen, 24-foot wide for in and out, to come to the parking areas, which are located primarily behind this building, so the light gray shading in this plan is obviously the building. Right at the end of where the engineering scale is essentially where we can start to create a line striping on Queen Street, which, along with all of the new curbing that we put in, the street trees and so forth, and the new sidewalks, there's a grass beauty strip along behind the curb in this specific location that is proposed. So all of those amenities actually create parking that's available for the neighborhood. Initially, we had more intense use on our building, but we've worked back and forth, and we have scaled back so that our parking on site is self-sufficient for our building, and what is along the streets that we're creating is available for the general neighborhood parking as well.
And the net increase in numbers of street parking,
I should
approximately?
I believe we were originally adding 14 or so along Queen Street. Might be slightly less because we're seeking the one area for loading zone up front there to be able to hop in there, service the grocery area, and then, exit as well. Again, that could still be multi-purpose as the previous project, although we think it will be more highly used maybe to supplement the store deliveries. And then I believe there were 8 potential also along Furnace Street, if I recall from our cover sheet, being created. From Furnace Street on the drawings, you see a yellow shaded area that's somewhat narrower. We've looked at that as a one-way entry in for obtaining access up to the level of where the parking areas would be for this building. There are some grade challenges. The site is very difficult to develop, a lot of retaining walls around the perimeters and whatnot. We originally had that exiting and then realized through comments and through some more general discussion with the city that that's extremely difficult for us to really have a safe exit there, so we turned it into only entering. I suppose in an emergency situation, if something were to occur at this other location, people could still exit out that way if absolutely needed. It is an alternate way they could leave that location if they had to. So essentially, we are looking to close off all of the existings, replace curbing, and have these 2 access points along with the one loading area there located close to the doors for the grocery space.
Are there other things that you'd like to share with us about the project?
We're excited. We're excited. We're anxious to move forward. We've had some city reviews. We're working through some more details on more green roofs right now. We went in, added a bunch more stormwater. I think we're real close on where we are with everything. And, we're looking forward to wrapping things and coming back in and being able to move the project forward. Hopefully, we've already got sewer module approvals and whatnots. We are playing a little catch up with PennDOT yet, and Cindy knows that. But beyond that, we are moving through our land development world pretty well. We're ready to bring the plans back in soon, next 2 weeks.
I know that it's not quite germane, but I wanted to say that one of the things that is commendable, as far as I'm concerned, is that they're doing further MS4 separation so that rather than this all being part of the combined sewer system, this is taking water out of
Correct.
the combined, and that's a huge benefit as far as the
Yeah.
city is concerned. And that is not something that was initially required. That's something that
We
they were able to.
we thank you for that. We've worked hard. We're trying to balance costs for the project while still understanding the needs of the city and whatnot. So,
It's tremendously appreciated,
Yeah.
let me tell you.
well, thank you.
Are there comments or questions from the commission?
Yeah. I have a question, Cindy, on, with this project being planned right in front of us, what's going on with the Ingleside project that they were talking about doing, redoing the intersection down there?
Right, That project is on hold with PennDOT, and that was more at the request of the city because of the various projects, or potential projects that may be happening there in the future. The roundabout was considered, and reviewed. It basically got to where they were evaluating alternatives, and a roundabout was one of those alternatives, but because of grades and that kind of thing, it really wasn't feasible at that location, so, the options that they came back with were not, the city's primary goal was to improve pedestrian and bicycle access and, improve safety in general in that area. And the improvements that they had were just sort of not substantial in nature, so we just asked that they sort of put that on hold until we had our larger projects related to sewer separation or Water Street Bike Boulevard, just till we got some of those projects more developed and understand what the scope and what the impact to that area may be with those projects.
Also with this now too, with this project, what about the issues that we have currently with South Queen Street coming out at Highland Avenue and of course Furnace, et cetera. Now, obviously this is going to increase more traffic than currently. Should we look at any other ways of addressing that?
I believe, is the traffic study complete, or we're still working through some of the details on the traffic study?
I believe we're about 2/3 there, but this is Michelle, our traffic engineer, so I'll let her speak to that.
Hi, I'm Michelle Madslin. I'm with Elier. I am working on the traffic study looking at Furnace and Queen, Queen and Highland, Furnace and Highland, and Furnace and Prince.
Okay.
So I'm not quite done yet, so I don't know exactly yet,
Okay.
but that is part of what we are looking at of impacts as well as the existing conditions and what we're going to do with it when we add more traffic to it.
Even today, that's why I brought it up, because even today, without it's a problem area.
Yes,
And that's
Yes,
why I
that
was
is a
bringing
problem.
that up, that I was wondering if the study.
yes.
Okay, terrific.
Is the parking going away on South Queen Street that exists?
No, on the eastern or the resident side, everything that's there will remain. We are creating additional, so that's a great view. Back a second. Can you pan left?
No, I guess my concern
That's
is,
perfect.
do we still have enough roadway space to make this
Yes.
2 lanes and still accommodate the parking?
It's one lane. It's going to be one lane.
It'll be one lane of travel. There'll be
Okay.
parking on both
All right.
sides, so it'll be
Fair
one.
enough. It looked like it was 2 lanes, we were putting striping up the middle to indicate 2 lanes of travel on. That's
It's
where I got
confusing
lost.
right now because it's so wide. It's
Okay.
kind of a free-for-all.
And
know.
I think you are showing on the plan some parking lane lines, so that will
Yes. Yes.
that will help to better define the travel lane as well.
Other comments or questions from the commission?
I have a question. I see on the plan that there is a sign mounted on the face of the wall for no trucks to enter through the Furnace Street driveway. I'm wondering if there is a height that you had in mind and whether that should also be posted on the sign.
Actually, right now, the project has made a change in architects. So while when I submitted this reflected the original where we were passing under, they're actually shortening that building a tad bit for not extending over top there, Douglas. So we still do not expect nor want trucks going up into that upper area. It's a steep driveway.
Yeah.
We know we're steep there. We've looked at the profiles and we've looked at the drivability of that. But I guess what I'm saying is, at the time we've submitted these plans, the building has now shortened. So, Michelle, can you go point to where the retaining wall is and those steps? So those steps would be open air, and the points north of that would be open air then.
I see.
So it stops short now. That was a most recent change that just occurred a little bit ago here, post our submission. But again, I just want to emphasize, they're working really hard for the affordability, and so there's been some moving parts that we've not even caught up with you on yet, Douglas, which is the reason why my land development plans are not back in at the moment. We were catching up with the current architects and whatnot for the footprints, essentially the same. It shortens on the left end a little bit too, and the right end, and they've looked at a more economical way to provide the construction for the project's benefit to escalating prices. So we're working hard with the group to wrangle that in.
Okay, thank you for the updates. Honestly, I feel like that's probably a safety improvement for that driveway anyway, so I like that idea.
Agreed.
So no height needs to be posted there. I think my only other question for you is, I'd like to just hear you walk through the connectivity between this site and South End Park and how you foresee that working. This particular pedestrian path out of the site onto Furnace doesn't quite align with the intersection at Beaver Street, so I was just curious whether your team thought through the connectivity, I'm sure you have, to the park across the street that residents will likely be using.
We have met with the residents, and I think a couple times at this point, and we do know, the neighborhood meets routinely in that community building there as well. We can certainly introduce a striped crosswalk at that location. Currently, we were feeling it was perhaps, we're improving the intersection up here near Furnace and whatnot with the ADA ramps and Queen. But we can certainly continue to look at that and accommodate if directly across from Beaver makes sense to do a mid-block crossing. I know a lot of times that is avoided, but the reality is children that live here will be running back and forth across the street in that location. So if we need to put a striped crosswalk in with some pedestrian warning signs posted for ahead of that in both directions on the street, we're certainly able to accommodate that into the plans.
Sure, and I think that's something we can address further through the land development process too.
Yep.
But thank you for thinking through that with me. My last question is about bus access at this site. So I know this had come up during Planning Commission. There's not a bus stop nearby, directly on this development site. There's one on Prince Street headed south out of town. There's one on Highland Ave that's headed north into the city. That one is located down at Greenwood Cemetery. And I don't know why the bus stop was chosen for that particular location at the, let's see if I can see, the intersection of Greenwood and Highland. It's a fairly, it's not a very active intersection, and I'm just curious, I don't know if Cindy has any thoughts on that,
Well,
but yeah.
We can ask Red Rose Transit if they can move that bus stop to Furnace Street.
Yeah,
To provide that. There used to be a lot of service in that area. They were talking about looking at restructuring some of that service down there to give it more frequency than it currently has. So they're going to be revisiting a lot of that stuff in the near future, so that they'll have an answer for that.
And I'm
I
actually
like that
on the
idea.
Transit Authority Board,
Yeah.
so
That
I can
much
also
I
bring
know,
that
yeah.
up and have that discussion with our folks. on the
Yeah, please do.
authority,
I
too.
think moving it further north, at least on Highland, to the intersection, sorry, I'm moving between maps here. Maybe at the intersection of Furnace and Highland could be at least, much closer to this development, and there'd be a very short walking distance, especially with this being an affordable housing project and having some density to it. I think it'd be great to provide that amenity.
Yep, I will have that discussion with our
Okay,
folks.
and that may play into then, depending on where it goes, parking location and street changes then, which maybe we can revisit at another meeting if needed.
Okay, we'll certainly pursue that discussion.
Are there other comments or questions from the commission? Any comments or questions from the public? Is there a recommendation for how to go forward on this?
I'll recommend that we conditionally approve 33-2022 as requested, conditional on land development approval.
Seconded.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Don't go anywhere.
I'm actually going to take a break.
Oh, okay.
Dominic and Jason from our office will present the next case.
Very good. Again, I want to thank you for what's going on with this particular project. It shows how much even affordable housing can do some great stuff in the community by proactively connecting with it. I appreciate that tremendously. Item 34.
And I'll also add, we didn't get to say that it's a drastic improvement over the existing conditions at the Redmond site, where there's like 5 different entry, points for vehicles, so.
That is true. That is true. So item 34-2022, reviewing the land development plans for 250 College Avenue submitted by Cheryl Love, and you are
Dominic Wicker.
Dominic. Mr. Wicker, thank you again.
Thank you.
I've met you before.
Yes.
Thank you. Please, Mr. Wicker.
So do you want to bring that up? So we're here, I guess this is our second visit. I'm talking about 250 College Avenue. This is a project that our company, Washington Place Equities, is undertaking. Will consist of a historic renovation at the 1950s era hospital building, along with new construction in the existing rear parking lot and along Marietta Avenue. It'll be, I think, 169 multifamily units in the front, adaptive reuse project, and then in the parking lot area in the rear, it will consist of 53 new construction townhouses. I believe last time we presented the plan in concept, talked a little bit about the parking, both on-site and across the street in the existing parking deck, and spoke to the questions about the streetscape and curb cuts along West Walnut. So, Jason, I don't know if there's anything else. Yep.
Hi, Jason Best with the LA Group. And Michelle's here. You met her previously. Obviously, Cheryl as well. Michelle, could I get you to go back to the demo plan, please? So, appreciate your time here. We are here this evening, and could you flip that?
The other way.
180 degrees, please? Thank you. We are here to review some of what we discussed 2 months ago, when we just sort of presented things broadly. We've since then met with staff to sort of firm up some of what we've been proposing and discuss in a little more granularity some of the competing things along particularly West Walnut and College with respect to all the activity that we anticipate. But the plan we're viewing now is really an existing conditions and demolition plan. West Walnut Street is on plan right. College is plan south, and Marietta Avenue plan west. And just off the page to the top is West End Avenue. So I'll start just briefly highlighting the various driveways that exist that we are proposing to close or do away with. On College Avenue, there are 3 of them. There are 2 that are associated with the drop-off at the portico at the entrance to the hospital. Those are one way in, one way out, and there is a Red Rose Transit bus stop that sits sort of right in front of that portico, which we'll get to later. Immediately to the south of that, which is actually Plan West, is a entrance into the lower level of the Delp wing of the hospital that will also be closed off.
moving sort of clockwise around the plan, up on Marietta Avenue, there is a driveway that opens into what I'll call the utility yard surrounding the boiler building. Since that is all being demolished, that entrance no longer will serve a purpose, and that is coming out. Moving around the corner to West End Avenue, there is an existing opening there that is serving that large parking lot at that corner of the property. That curb cut will remain in that spot, although it will be entirely reconstructed. And moving clockwise around again, two more items. We have one mid-block opening there that similarly will be remaining, but reconstructed. And just to the east or planned south of that, there is an existing sort of turnout area that is utilized as a drop-off point. And I think doctors traditionally parked there short-term when they were flying in to save the day. So that is something that will be repositioned. The curb cut is going to go away as it is now shown. So that's that highlighted area there. So now we can get to the proposed condition. And I'll start again on College Avenue. A little hard to see, but you guys are looking at a smaller copy that has a little bit of color on it that might be a little bit more apparent. There are some green lines there that reflect some outcomes from a recent meeting we had with staff, mostly dealing with parking along College, but also parking along West Walnut Street and the implementation of a dedicated bike lane along the curb, which I'll get to. But we are proposing a mid-block entry off of College that will open into a surface parking lot behind the Delp Wing, just to the west of the Delp Wing, but also will allow for service, trash removal and so forth to both buildings, but will allow access to a garage level within the actual hospital building itself. There are 35 spaces on that lower garage level and another 49 surface spaces there in the lot behind the Delp Wing. Would point out that there's a possibility that will also open into the Delp Wing itself and provide a secondary access point for the parking that actually sits below that building itself. And that occurs almost the whole way down toward the Marietta Avenue end. So I mentioned the Red Rose Transit stop earlier that was originally positioned just out in front of the portico. We envision that moving south slightly, just past this mid-block opening, so that buses can easily navigate to the curb because of that opening and because of the parking restrictions that'll be there. So it might actually be sitting in front of the Delp Wing itself. I think we have that labeled on the plan there. The on-street parking along College, we would envision as metered parking, and I think we can establish up to 10 legal spaces there, but it depends on whether we stripe it or leave that to people to cram cars in a little more efficiently. Around the corner, clockwise again, we are proposing a mid-block curb cut there for a private street that extends the whole way through the site from north to south or south to north. That mid-block street was something that came up early in our discussions with staff, just because of the size of the block, and it certainly offers some opportunity for some circulation opportunities for the townhomes portion of the project there to the west as well. Those folks have a little bit more of a choice about which way they want to head out as they go to work or come home from work at the end of the day. Moving to the west and clockwise around again, West End Avenue, we have a similar private street, or really I guess it's an access drive that just serves sort of the parking and mews area behind each of those townhouses. connects all the way down to the vicinity of what is now the loading dock at the hospital at that north-south private street. And moving around again clockwise, we have the curb cut that is actually there, but being brought up to standard with the city's current specifications for aprons and so forth. That is at the north end of that private street. And slightly south of that, we are envisioning a area for loading and unloading that would be restricted to parking. The parking that's there along West Walnut Street, as we discussed with staff recently, is going to be 7 feet removed from the curb itself. What we are anticipating based on those discussions is a 5-foot wide bike lane with a 2-foot buffer that would be striped, and then a 7-foot wide parking lane, for lack of a better term, parking area. It's within that 7-foot area that we would envision that loading and unloading zone, so that the bike lane would move sort of between that space and the building. We see that as a favorable situation for all the parcel deliveries and food deliveries and Uber pickups and all that stuff that are associated with the 169 units in that building. And it's really conveniently located adjacent to one of the elevators in that facility. So that location really works out great. Immediately to the west of that, up the slope on West Walnut, we, I think, are carving out, I think it's 8 legal size spaces we can get to the west of that mid-block opening. Although, again, depending on whether we stripe them, we might be able to get more. To the east of that loading and unloading area, I think there's space for 2 spaces before we get into that signalized intersection. And so I think that covers everything. I guess I'll stop talking and ask if you all have any questions at this point.
Thank you very much. Are there questions or comments from the commission?
I was just trying to identify whether Marietta is a state route in that area. Because I don't recall.
It is a state route. 23.
Have you confirmed, Michelle, or? Okay. I know it's city maintenance, so I think,
I'm looking at it on the map. Google's saying it's a state route identified as Route 23.
right, it's, but that's similar, Chestnut is also
Yeah.
Route 23, so, I think, I'll just have to confirm. I believe it is city maintained east of, there's a point, that 23 becomes city maintained.
And Cindy, what are you suggesting the implication might be there?
It would
Just
just-
approvals?
Right, HOP probably, if it were PennDOT, but.
Do they, would that significantly alter the design at all? I imagine what we have on Walnut Street sounds like is being extended to this block. Do you foresee any challenges getting approval for that?
Well, ELA is aware we've been having some issues with PennDOT related to the design standards to which they want these driveways to look, which isn't necessarily consistent with what our standards are. So, we'll just have to look. Like I said, I think it may not be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Other comments from the commission level?
Well, the only one that I have is the driveway coming out on Marietta Avenue in the proposal. There's parking on the opposite side on Marietta Avenue. That might have to be affected with the turning, since Marietta Avenue is not wide enough. You think that's going to have a play in anything about any removal of spaces?
And is that both left and right out on Marietta? I think I recall that it is, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's two-way.
Cindy, do you have any?
I'm sorry, what was the
Somehow.
concern? That,
When, with the driveway that's being proposed,
Mhm.
private street, when it's going south toward Marriott Avenue, you have parking on Marriott Avenue currently on the south side. With the way Marriott Avenue being narrow and the angle, do you think that's going to affect turning radius, or do you think that could be mitigated?
I don't think I'm assuming that it's just going to be like passenger vehicles for the most part. Is there any anticipation of any kind of, maybe a box truck, but, if it were like a delivery or something, but.
Trash truck, something that would load at the residential scale.
Right. I don't see a left out being an issue, maybe. Or
The
right
right
out.
would be the
maybe
issue.
Maybe a
That's
little
what
tight, but, I'm sure you could do a truck turn or, a turning radius, not a truck turn, but just a passenger vehicle or something to see if that would be able to make that turn.
We provided the zoning department with a truck turning to substantiate that could work for a ladder truck with the cities. Now granted,
You're
I'm
assuming.
sure you're taking some liberties in an emergency situation there, but yeah. The mechanics do work. Will they stay in the lane while doing so? Perhaps not.
Is this the view? From,
That's looking towards Chestnut to
Yeah.
the east.
Coming out approximately where the driveway is,
Right.
give or take, right?
Yeah, because there's the concrete apron across the street, so I would imagine it would be around that area.
oh, okay, so that's the apron across the street, so it would be on the right side, so yeah.
Yeah, the driveway's coming out approximately just to this side of that utility pole that's in the foreground there. So I believe that you may be right that the opening that's directly across the street from that may preclude people from parking directly across from that.
Is it back further towards College Avenue or?
Oh, it's up the slope a little bit further,
Oh, so
sorry.
it's-
Yeah, it's actually going to be right about where that gate is to the right.
See, there's the concrete apron.
Gotcha.
And it looks like the primary conflict, if there is one, would be turning left out of that driveway, probably.
Turning left, I would see is probably not as hard as
As
turning
right.
right, just
Okay.
because the lane is right up on the curb.
Yeah.
Right, it's narrower there, so.
Yeah.
That's what I would anticipate would be the concern.
Mhm.
Just at being able to turn right and stay in their lane.
Yeah.
Right.
If
And,
I was just gonna say, if there's no parking or anything on the other side, if the lane,
There is parking on that side. It's, it is,
Looks like there's one
There's,
parking space.
in that picture, it shows only one vehicle, and then it shows the
there's some
meters.
further up.
And then there's
So
two more there.
two there and one up before the hydrant there, I guess.
and you're saying the fire truck turning diagram did include this driveway as well, right? Okay. Yeah.
It did, yes.
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me, but
Nor do I, but I know Jamil has it someplace, and I can send it
Sure.
as well.
yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Jason, sorry if I missed this. There was a lot of good information there. Do you have a breakdown of just how many spaces we're gaining or losing all around the site in terms of public right-of-way?
So no, in terms of how many spaces we're losing, because so much of that is just not clear. How do you define a space?
Or linear feet, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, so I know we're, with the removal of the driveways along College, and, moving that bus stop to the south, we're definitely creating a critical mass of parking out in front of the multifamily, and, we would view that as a big plus to the commercial spaces that are proposed, on the first floor. There are 10, as I said, 22-foot-long spaces there that are, outside of what we would, consider to be the sight lines, which are shown on those 11 by 17 plans in sort of a magenta color. So, again, if we decide to stripe those, we get 10. If we leave it to more of an organic, you may get more, you may get less. But we would view those as the metered spaces up around the corner on West Walnut. I suspect we may be losing spaces depending on how we decide to adhere to those sight lines. I mean, I know that is a one-way street, and but coming out at that mid-block area, I think, if we start to impose those sight lines where we may not have those being imposed today with the parking, where that truck is parked, for instance, that's probably not going to be a viable parking spot. In fact, I think we're showing no parking essentially between that mid-block entrance and the proposed loading and unloading zone. That's sort of just, where this view is being taken from. But up in the next part of the block, up the slope where that white car is parked, I think we have 8 22-foot spaces shown there on the plans. And again, that could translate to more or less depending on how we decide to go with that.
Mhm. I mean, in that summary, I'm not hearing any kind of large reduction in on-street parking. It could be break
I would call
even.
it a push, maybe, in totality.
I did have one other question about the driveway on College. I just want to confirm that driveway is also serving Lot 2 and whenever that is developed. Is that, I assume that'll be established through an easement on the property or a condominium association agreement of some kind. Is that right?
Yes, one or both.
Okay.
And we have been in contact with HTC and have shared those plans with them. Preliminary feedback is good, although I think they said, their attorney's still reviewing. But, Tammy, for instance, she really didn't have anything bad to say about, the proposed connection point into the lower portion of the Delp wing. And, we see that as actually, helping with the parking situation out along College, minimizing those curb cuts and trying to centralize that, making it a little bit safer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in the meantime, that other entrance on College serving under Delp Wing will remain. So if they need to access this site, they can do that in the meantime while construction proceeds around it.
Correct. I mean,
Okay.
that entrance is, not really problematic for anything. It's far enough away that it doesn't really impact anything we're doing. And they may decide to keep that, or, petition to keep it. I wouldn't necessarily see a problem with that, especially if it became like a write-in only or something
Mhm.
of that nature,
Mhm.
or entrance only, perhaps.
Well, just a couple of overall comments. I appreciate the addition of parking at the commercial frontage. The streetscape here is being designed in accordance with our subdivision and land development standards. It's going to echo what's required across the street at the HTC project, where I think there may be a gain in some parking spaces there as well because of the closure of one of the driveways there. And the loading zone on the side of the building, just my own thoughts, I think interacts fairly well with the bike lane situation. The residents, I think, will be in need of an amenity like that for drop-offs of packages and for there to be loading. As I understand it, there is an elevator very close inside that building there, right? So for loading into the building, that seems like a really critical opportunity. Is there a similar amenity on the south side of the building, or is that really the primary move-in spot for the entirety of the existing hospital?
For move-in purposes, yes, there are some spots there where a box truck or moving truck could back into a spot that might regularly be reserved for trash on trash day, but there's definitely space there where they would not be blocking the flow of traffic, where they could, move items from the truck into the building through double doors and such. So that was part of the design intent. Yeah, we do have a few, there are ADA spaces as shown, but yeah, I mean, I guess you could option one of those also for move-in. That is where the tip of the pen is right about where the loading dock is presently. So obviously that's conducive, and there's a freight elevator, I believe, just inside of that someplace. So, another good spot for people to go to move in and out.
Mhm. And is the interior parking high enough at either the ground floor or the first floor level for a box truck to get in, or a van, or what is the height of that parking?
No, in fact, I was just having this conversation with the architectural team last week. We are concerned, and I need to check with codes and perhaps Jamil on this, but we are not going to be able to get the 7-foot clearance, I think, in the ADA space that would be required for a van accessible space. We are showing sufficient ADA van spaces outside the building, so I just wanted to make sure that was, okay and according to Hoyle before we move forward. No, in light of that discussion, I do not believe that there's head clearance for a box truck to get into the garage.
Okay. Is there elevator access at both the ground floor and first floor parking structure inside the hospital? Okay. So a resident could potentially pull in there with their own vehicle, unload some things into the elevator, and move up?
I think that's fair, Dominic.
Okay. So it sounds like there's multiple points of access. I know there's going to be a lot of move-in here. It's a high-density development, so just want to make sure that we're accommodating, traffic needs there. I think those are all my questions for the moment.
Are there other questions from the commission?
I would say the loading zones appear to be appropriate. I would just want to work through maybe some of the details as far as the striping or whatever, how that interacts with the bike lane.
Sure.
Yeah, but in agreement with that. And we are still waiting for the traffic study related to this
Correct.
project as well. So we may be looking at, if there are any other.
Is there, and I'm asking just generally, the nature of the grades on West Walnut Street as they relate to that bulb, the turnout space? I mean, there's a flush curb there now, and this goes back to the 50s when the building was built. The street grades are pretty close to that of the actual entrance right there. I don't think there's going to be much of an opportunity for us to create a vertical curb there. Is it a problem if we keep a flush curb for a little distance at that location, knowing that it's adjacent to the bike path and there's parking between it and or loading, I should say, between it and the actual travel lanes? I'm just not sure we're going to have any recourse but to do that.
In general, I don't like to see depressed curbs for areas that are not used for driveways.
It may not have a 6-inch reveal.
Right.
We could probably do something less.
Yeah, and I don't think that would be a deal breaker if that's something that,
Okay.
the grades don't allow.
I think we can work on that. I just wanted to sort of set the expectation because my initial look at that was that might be problematic to get a 6-inch reveal. But if something less is acceptable, we could probably do that.
Other questions from the commission? Other questions from the public?
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Hannigan, 304 College Avenue. I can understand that someone has to be working full-time on this project because there's so many moving parts. I'll try to focus my comments. Possibly a year ago, I heard the Traffic Commission was going to review the residential permit parking policy, and nothing's happened. It was projected to be available first of the year, and here we are, July, and I just wonder, where are we with the RPP policy?
We're still looking at it. It's a larger problem than we imagined, and so it's going to take longer for us to do. We're doing some outreach to different communities to get a better sense of the magnitude and the nature of the challenge. It's a different challenge in different neighborhoods throughout the city, and that will be folded then into a larger approach to addressing parking challenges throughout the city.
Can you put me on the list to be notified? I haven't heard word one since I've been attending these meetings for almost a year about residential permit parking. And just to point out that the north side of West Walnut Street on through to Race is residential permit parking.
Right.
Okay. So
And that,
are we going to stick with a policy I can live with? That's why I want to be informed. That's why I'm asking that first.
and I do understand. I will say, though, that part of the challenge of residential permit parking is that the need that created RPP in that location didn't exist as soon as the hospital closed. So part of the challenge is that RPP generally is for addressing the very aggressive needs of high turnover and a variety of other kinds of things. But we will definitely be able to keep you on that list.
I would hope you could help me understand if there's any change possible for RPP on the side of Walnut Street that I'm speaking of. I would also ask you to understand that this through road between Marietta and West Walnut is going right away, and it's connecting with Alley 30, okay, which is very narrow. I drive an F-150, okay, it's too big for me, but that's what I have. And I can get off of Walnut Street into that alley, but at the opposite end, there are two fenced properties, okay? I won't take my truck through there. It's just not a safe fit. It's not a smart fit for me to go through there. So you're creating this, alley within the property, and I just wonder if you've studied the impact on Alley 30. I also would look for the bike path going through there. That aligns with another alley that's really a dead end. But in both cases, are we going to have striping for pedestrian safety? I really think it's important if we have, those striped, something along West End striped, something more striped, perhaps to align with this moved RRTA stop. Okay, there's a need for pedestrian striping, and I can't imagine that being a cost factor that's holding that back. There's a need for it along Marietta where that through route comes. I hope you will consider that. So those are my mid-block points. My alley point. I have to ask you to bear with me just a little bit more here. Having lived here almost 35 years, I've seen the hospital in its heyday. I've seen it through 4 different owners. I've seen it now as not used. But what I've seen is people ignore the residential parking permit policy on the block of Walnut on through to Race. They're just ignorant of it. And the fact that you want to make a loading zone on the other side, on the hospital side of the property, just means that it's going to invite more people to switch. I'm going to do that too. That's how I'm going to get my groceries in. That's how I'm going to get to my apartment faster, because it's 10 steps, 100 steps, 300 steps less to that bank of elevators if I park there. And so for them to all of a sudden become a very observant of a loading zone, I don't see it happening. I see it being abused more than not. And I'll say one last thing, and this is to do with bicycle traffic. Yes, there are bicycle lanes out to College Avenue. I walk Walnut Street a lot. I walk Walnut Street almost every other day, let's say, between my house at the corner of College and Walnut and blocks in toward town. In fact, I walk all the way across the town because I volunteer, and that's how I approach that volunteer spot. And people ignoring the bike lanes is just unbelievable. The F-bomb has been dropped on me more times than I can count, because I asked someone to please use the bike lane. Now, I understand an officer told me, don't put your body in front of them, don't tip a trash can in front of them. That's not legal. I would be at fault if I tipped something in front of a bicyclist. Children, but teens, adults, they're all abusing it. They're on the sidewalk, they're in the lane. And they get this FU all the time when I say, please use the bike lane.
Well, we certainly recognize, as we're accelerating the construction of our our active transportation network, which is the bike lanes in large part, that education is a huge part of what has to happen, both for the bicyclists and for vehicles. bicycles are also allowed to use the vehicle lanes and
I
not,
understand they're allowed to.
so
okay?
I
But
think a
when
lot of it,
when it comes down to using the vehicle lane and the bicycle lane, I still see them in the sidewalk.
correct. And so that goes to a lot of the education that is still necessary on a broad scale for any new intervention. And I appreciate that because this is one of the things that we continue to advocate for as we talk about increased active transportation.
Thank you very much. You may remember the name Tim Stuhldreher. He was a reporter for Lancaster newspapers.
Yes.
He has a broken shoulder now because someone pulled a door out in front of his use of a bicycle path. So there you have a knucklehead in a vehicle not checking his mirrors or her mirrors, and bam, the mishap is created that fractures my friend's shoulder. That's just another aspect of moving parts that deserve full-time attention.
I very much appreciate that. And I think that I saw you taking notes as you were making these comments. So I think a lot of these things are, as they're continuing to evolve and not only finish the traffic study, but finish their proposals for it. I think it's, I'm hoping and assuming that those will be things that can be addressed during the final design.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much as well. Are there other comments from the public? So, how does one want to move forward? It sounds like there's still work that's going on. This was more to apprise us of the progress of the work in progress.
I'll let Mr. Best address that.
I mean, there is certainly more with respect to other, city committees and such that we would anticipate. I think we're at a point with these openings and locations that I think there's a comfort level, and we would ask you to entertain a motion if that's appropriate.
I'll add that, we've worked hard with this team on developing this street layout. I'm not sure when we started that process, 2 years ago maybe. And the street alignment was one of the first things that we worked on as staff. And I think from that standpoint, the driveway openings, personally, I feel comfortable with, as well as the loading zone with some refinement, as Cindy mentioned. The alignment, just for the commission's benefit, the alignment of the north-south drive with Alley 30 and the alignment of the bike path with the other alleyway just west of that was partly to minimize areas of conflict, right? Generally, when you align drives across from one another, you're creating a little bit more of a structured intersection. And our intention and our design thinking is that actually helps limit points of conflict on the street, as opposed to staggering them along the entire distance of that block. So with that, I certainly feel comfortable with moving forward if the commission is conditional on land development approval and some further refinement.
I'll second that.
Okay. Just to clarify, I will retroactively motion to approve conditional on land development approval.
So there's been a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Are there comments what I recollect was that there were several comments along the way of making minor adjustments here and there. Do we need to record those, or the intersection, for instance, of the cross route and Marietta, there was discussion about whether that was sufficient to be able to make the right turns from that egress. Do we need to take note of those, or will that be subsumed in the land development, in the final land development review?
We give it the conditional approval because the traffic study's still not complete.
Correct. Traffic
So
study, and
that would give us, when the traffic study is finished, then that would give us the more detail.
Okay.
It would. If we make an action today on this, I don't think they would have to return for that meeting. I mean, we could ask for an additional report, but the traffic study would be reviewed by staff internally and worked into the land development plan if there are improvements that are required through the traffic impact study. The turning movements on Marietta, I think we can certainly clarify and revisit with the developer. I think, I saw that the zoning exhibit as well. I recall that was sized for one of our fire trucks, so I expect that we can accommodate that, but certainly we can look at that for the land development. And the metered parking, does this commission take action on adding additional metered parking, or is that just a parking authority decision?
That was, that meter parking was instituted well before.
We do? Okay.
Yes, that on College Avenue
Yeah,
was done well before. That's been in there from,
it's been removed, and
long
I
as
think
I
we
know.
would want to add it back along College Ave to create turnover for the commercial spaces. So is that an action that we need to take tonight, or is that something we want to come back to further refine where along College Ave there's metered parking? Okay.
I think it is, required for the traffic commission to take action on it. So if once that's maybe been established, you could come back and, that could be later in the process,
Right.
I'm sure, once construction starts even, or something like that.
Could, just to maybe help simplify the process, could we take an action on it, conditional on the parking authority approving the locations with city staff? That way, at least if we're all in agreement that the west side of College Ave requires metered parking for this portion of the development, we can at least knock that off the table this evening. Okay, so then I'll amend my motion to include the condition that metered parking be added along the frontage of this development on College Ave, and with the location and exact installment to be determined by the Lancaster Parking Authority in concert with city staff.
So there's
So
been
moved
an amendment to it, and that's been moved
and seconded.
and seconded. Is there any further comment? Is there any further comment from the public? Having seen none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. So
Thank you for your time.
we've gotten through the action, that part of the action agenda. Thank you very, very much. There are two other items under additional business that are real quick, and then there's the consent agenda to get through, hopefully relatively quickly as well. So under the additional business, the May meeting discussion, Ms. McCormick mentioned changing the speed limit on Beaver Street and asked if Traffic Commission has approved changes to speed limits in the past. She had looked into these changes and discovered that this needs to go before City Council before review of the ordinance. And at this moment,
Right, so at this moment, I'm just providing the update that it is not technically an action of the traffic commission, I guess, to change speed limits.
speed limits.
And I will likely be taking several streets, at the same time to city council at a future date to change speed limits.
Okay, thank you. Then there's the update to TC 45-2021 Ross Elementary and the conversion of North Market Street.
Yeah, this was just, the traffic commission had approved, I guess, back in January to convert North Market Street between Ross and Liberty to one-way. And the school had asked that we do that during the summer to give them a chance to inform. So I'm just giving the update that will happen. It's scheduled to happen on August 1st. And we will be generating a flyer that we'll distribute to the neighboring properties and also give that to the school district as well to distribute to the parents.
Very good. So that wraps up the additional business. Then going back to the consent agenda, item 25, 2022, the following signs have been tentatively approved and installed. There's a list of 17 handicap parking spaces, 2 no parking signs, and a do not block and a load zone sign. Oh, I guess those are the 2 no parking signs.
We can take it all in
So you want it,
consent agenda as one. So we can,
so then the other items on the consent agenda are 26, 2021. The following signs have been removed, which lists 8 different locations where handicap parking signs have been removed. And then item 27, 2021, following conditional temporary parking permits have been issued by LPA. Six addresses are noted there.
Mr. Campbell,
Make a motion to,
if not, please, there seems to be a misprint on the agenda. It should be 26, 2022, and 27, 2022, as opposed to 21.
Yeah, the agenda has it, but the background does not.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for the correction.
I make a motion to approve 25 through 27 with the adjustments to our agenda
The agenda.
for approval.
There's been a motion,
I second.
a motion and a second. Any comment from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The consent agenda has been approved. Thank you very, very much. And I think that's it. Is there any other business that needs to be attended to? If not, I'll be willing to entertain a motion for,
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
second. Thank